1, 2, 3, 4.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters. On this, our 8th Spoilercast for the Good Morning Guys podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this fine morning, afternoon, evening, or night as we discuss arguably one of the most revered masterpieces in video game history, in the very least PlayStation history, The Last of Us. Yeah. I'm one of your hosts, the Brazilian mountaineer and transition ninja, Lucas Ham Swisher. Hello. Also with us, the judge, jury, and executioner of fake news and spoilers, Patrick Novosel.
It's up.
And our final member of the GMG quadfecta, since our third member, Ronnie, does not own a PlayStation console.
Womp womp.
This guy's got music in his heart, Doctor Who on his brain, and La Coretta literally in his stomach right now as we speak. Maybe. No, he doesn't. All right, Patrick has it. Marc Boucher.
Why are you looking at me like that? I'm trying to learn how to whistle.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
nice.
gosh.
That was quite
That's that going over my head.
I was like, Mark, does he not know how to whistle? What is
No, I know how to whistle.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay, there it is.
No, I was doing my best Ellie impression.
I was drowning. It's like I didn't know how to swim. All right.
I got it.
There it is. Being as The Last of Us Part 2 is coming out in T-minus 9 days, and Mark just recently played through, for the first time, what we can now call Last of Us Part 1, I think we should take some time to chat it up. Sound good?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, welcome joiners, welcome listeners to the 8th Spoilercast of the GMG Guys. We are currently talking about The Last of Us, a 95 out of 100 on Metacritic, sold over 20 million copies over the past 7 years. And so we are just going to talk about every last inch. No, we're not. For the next 3 hours, we are going to be talking
about the first 30 minutes.
Yeah. But we do understand we're doing a spoiler cast of a 7-year-old game, so we might not cover things completely thoroughly, but we're going to talk about all the highlights, especially with Mark being fresh off the boat. Mark, why don't you kind of give us an idea of what brought you to this point, how you finally played The Last of Us?
Short answer is you guys.
We made you. We said, do it, or we'll take your lunch money.
Do it. No, basically, you guys and, obviously the Married to the Games community, they talk this game up quite a bit. And, they mention it, like you guys have, as a masterpiece. And I had tried it in the past. I purchased it probably about... Actually, I think I purchased it right when I bought my PS4, which I was late to the game. I bought mine back in 2017, I think.
Okay.
Either 17 or 18, something like that.
Man, I forgot it was that late.
Yeah, so I haven't had my PS4 for that long. I was mostly an Xbox guy this past generation.
Yeah. I was late to the party, too. I bought mine in 2016?
Yeah.
Yeah, end of 2015, beginning of 2016, so I hear you.
But
late people, better late than never.
Yep. Which is funny because I mostly play on PS4 now.
Yeah.
But so I started to play the game. I think I played like the first hour-ish, and I lost interest. It felt kind of slow to me. And so obviously with the build-up, with Part 2 coming up, there was more encouragement to go back and play. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it one more shot. Since I only gave it about an hour, I'm going to really try to push through the first hour and just give it a really good try. Give it more of a chance. And so I had some time during my vacation. We do a yearly vacation with my wife's family. So I was able to pop in the game and get going on it. So
Nice. Now, Patrick, you were not late to the PlayStation game.
No.
Nor were you late to The Last of Us.
Right.
Did you play it pretty soon after its release?
I played day one.
There you go.
Yeah, because I was a big Uncharted fan. and then Naughty Dog came out with another story-driven kind of game with zombies, which is also one of my loves. So I was in immediately. So yeah, I played day one.
Nice.
And I think I've replayed it 3 more times since then. I think so.
Has it become like an annual thing every other year? How have you?
I don't know. I guess whatever I feel like it's something that I guess I gotta scratch that itch. I did play the first 2 times I played it was the OG on PS3, and then when they remastered it on PS4, I played it once more, and then I played it. I think it was maybe 2 months ago. Where I
played it like over a weekend, didn't you?
Yeah, I did it over a weekend, and because I just love that game so much. And I played through that. Yeah, so that's 4 times, and I wanted to get it fresh in my mind for Last of Us Part 2 that's coming out. And so happens that we're getting Mark to play this. So so we're doing the Spoilercast now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I sit right in the middle of you two guys where I, both on a podcast, not literally, but in terms of playing The Last of Us, I've played it twice. I played it once in 2013 and then in 2014. And the reason I got to play it is because I borrowed it from some students back when I was a teacher. I was teaching high school, probably in I guess that would have been the second or third year of being in Brazil.
Yeah.
And one of the ways in which I connected with my students was talking about video games. And one of these kids brought up The Last of Us. And I'm like, yes, I've heard of it. And I have not purchased it or played it because horror scares the crap out of me. And I get really antsy. I have to play with the lights on. And not literally like have to play with the lights on. But sometimes I've played like Resident Evil games in the past. And I've just gotten so freaked out that I've had to turn the lights on because I just get so so enthralled and into it, and it just it stresses me out. And so knowing that this was a quote unquote zombie game, I wasn't thinking I was going to play it. I really wanted to because it was made by Naughty Dog, the guys that made Uncharted. I've loved all their games, Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, all of those from the beginning of PS1. And so once this kid was like, hey, do you want to borrow my copy? I'm like, well, I'll play any game free. I'll give any game a try. Worst thing that happens, I'm like, nope, can't do this. And then I put it in the freezer or I give it back to the
freezer.
And it's really scary. You got to put it in the freezer.
Sure.
Or give it back to the kid. So I played through it twice. I really enjoyed it. And for me, it was something that I easily and quickly looked past the horror and realized that this was like a masterpiece. And so I've only played it twice on PS3. I haven't played it on PS4. I do have the remastered because of PS Plus. Or maybe I think I bought it on sale. And then like 2 months later, it was free on PS Plus. Don't you love when that happens?
I know, right? Yeah.
But then I was also going to do what Patrick had mentioned to kind of refresh and possibly play part 2 of The Last of Us, but then Dead Cells, Final Fantasy VII remake, and then now I'm getting into XCOM 2, and I'm like remaking all my friends in it so I can fight aliens. Just too many rabbit trails. But I will definitely go back and play it on the PS4, maybe even get the plat. I don't know, but we'll talk about those reasons why I may or may not here later.
Yeah.
So, as we already talked, this game it's kind of old in terms of, year to year, and it's 7 years old, pretty old. But there's so much to talk about, so many things that are so impactful and important from beginning to end. And so today we're just going to, talk about the things we have really liked and loved about it, talked about the things that maybe we, look back on and we're like, that could have been better, or, especially with Mark, your perspective's very fresh on it. And then hit up the ending, talk all about that because the ending is very impactful and has to say a lot about us as human beings and just as a video game. It's so good. And then finally, we'll end with some predictions of part 2. So to jump into that, since Mark is the freshest, I thought we could let him lead the way and share kind of like what was some of the things you liked about The Last of Us and really enjoyed.
Definitely the very first, first few minutes, like maybe 5-ish minutes, where we firmly establish who Joel is pre-cordyceps virus, and his daughter Sarah. He's very much a single parent. Working hard on his own, working late nights, and she's a girl, devoted to her daddy. And then you just all of a sudden see what I like to call the defecation hitting the oscillation. And
that happens sometimes.
Yeah. And you slowly see, and the beautiful thing is it acts as a tutorial for the game.
Yeah.
I love when tutorials do that. They weave the story moments into teaching you how to play. That way it's not another boring thing where it's like, oh, hit this button, hit this button, hit this button. No, it brings you along, what's the word? Naturally. There we go.
Yeah, it's more organic. Yep.
And so obviously you see everything going to crap. You hear about the increase in this virus spreading, and even through little things like the newspapers and stuff like that. You see this happening, and then of course the neighbor comes into the house after this. The Sarah wakes up after she's been put to bed by Joel, and then the neighbor comes in, and while Joel's kind of like you need to do this, and he's like kind of scared and all this kind of stuff, and the neighbor comes in the house and Joel has to shoot the neighbor, which is like, this is just immediately setting up like, okay, we're end of the world right now.
It gives you just 2 or 3 minutes just at the beginning with them sitting on the couch and talking together, and then it goes right into, okay, all heck's breaking loose. And I really, I think it's incredible how, like you mentioned, they weave in the mechanics of the game, the gameplay, but they even give you hints about Joel as a character. Yeah. Like from the get-go, he's kind of showing his character. Like there's the part where they're driving by a family that needs help, and his brother Tommy is like, hey, we should help them. The daughter's like, hey, they need help. And then Joel's like, nope, keep going.
Right.
They'll find a ride. They can take care of themselves.
Yep.
But yeah, that opening is so powerful, emotionally grabbing, especially as a dad.
Oh,
I'm sure.
Right. Yeah.
It's like this opening is like it's like up.
Oh my gosh, I was thinking the same thing
for adults.
Same thing
for parents and adults.
Yeah,
it's nuts. It's how it hits you from
every
the beginning.
Single time. Like I played it 4 times, and I don't know why, but it is the best beginning to the game. To any game, and just seeing that emotional toll that sets up Joel for the rest of the game. Things I'm going to talk about in the spoiler cast is Joel's emotional journey, and that's where it starts right there when that military guy is like on his little walkie-talkie, and it's like pretty much was told to shoot him, and ends up hitting Sarah, and just holding his daughter in his arms as she is dying, as she is crying. And that crying is just like, if you don't shed a tear, if you're a dad and you don't shed a tear, you did get your heart checked, because every single time I played it, I'm like, it's so gut wrenching and heart wrenching.
Yeah, I was actually watching after I beat the game. Troy Baker, and Nolan North, who is in this game, I think he does the voice of
David.
Okay, yeah. That's right. The creepy dude. Okay, we'll talk about him later.
We will.
It was Troy Baker, Nolan North, and I forget her name. I want to say it's Tara, the actress who plays Sarah. We're actually doing a playthrough of the game. And just watching their reactions and knowing the fact that they were actually talking about, a lot of this game is mocap. All the actors had to do mocap.
A lot of it is.
Right.
While they're doing
these
scenes.
Have you watched the Grounded documentary?
I started to. I haven't seen all of it, but I have seen.
You need to watch all of it, because they give you a lot of in-depth about that opening you're talking about.
And he was talking about, they had to do this scene 8 times or whatever, and every time it was still difficult. And actually 2 weeks later, they had to come back and shoot it again.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oh man, why are we shooting this again?" And Neil Druckmann, the creative director, was like, I've got here is a broken man, but what I need here is, basically he equates it to like all the stages of grief, literally in one shot. Right. And so that's what made it that much more impactful, is that you literally see Joel go through like a bunch of different stages of grief in one shot. And this is basically like on top of everything else that has just happened. This is like, okay, now my world was crashing down a little bit. Now it's crashing down a lot. Yep. And so that was kind of crazy. And what's even bigger is watching that video of them playing through, watching Nolan North's reaction, because he had never played it. He had never seen that game and they were playing the remastered version. This was posted, right, I want to say like 4 or 5 months ago. They posted this video, and he had no idea. And watching his reaction and watching Troy Baker and the actress who plays Sarah, they teared up in that moment.
Emotional scene for sure.
So that's how powerful that scene is. So kudos to Naughty Dog for really, really digging into that. They wrote that very well.
They made this game real. Like this is a game with zombies. It's not a game about zombies, or of sorts. Right. It has so I guess it would be infected. This game has infected elements into it, but it's not the focal point of the story. No. It's
what I really appreciate that about them, because that's one of the things that I mentioned. I don't like bloody violence. I don't like horror-based media. I don't watch horror movies. I don't get into that stuff. I've played Resident Evil in the past because for the most part when I played it, it was clearly not real. And so, once things started getting more real in video games, I've been more apprehensive to get into them. But this one, like, I really like the whole take on the cordyceps fungus, the different, they're zombie-like, but I would much rather face zombies than face these
clickers and
because
bloaters.
They're clickers, and the sounds they make are just like just all that stuff that they do is like, it's so creepy. But I love the ambiance of that, the way they build around that. I don't know if you guys have watched that part of Planet Earth that inspired Neil Druckmann to.
I have not. I knew it came fungus from that.
Yeah, so that was one of the inspirations, was that episode of Planet Earth. I remember watching that back in 2006, 2007, and it shows these ants getting possessed by the cordyceps fungus, and then just that idea that he saw that at some point after that, and then he used that to switch it into what if this happened to humans? And it's really creepy and scary to think of what if it did happen to humans, because that's how the diseases and things spread. They start sometimes in animals, and then some molecule shifts around, and all of a sudden humans can get it, and it's crazy real. Like, to me, I see zombies and I'm like, that's not real. But cordyceps, like, that's a real thing in our world.
It's a real infection.
And that just makes it all the more grounded and like really just engaging, because it could happen in theory. And so I really like that about the game, how they made it much more grounded in a horror kind of way. So
right. And right after that scene ends, it's just 20 years later. Like, you don't
what
know.
A jump, right?
Yeah. This whole world has changed. 20 years later, you see an older Joel, he's got gray in his beard, and it's like, wow, they are really pulling out all the stops, and it's only been 10 minutes. Like, I'm so in.
It's like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
So what did you guys think of the gameplay? Mark, I know you kind of like me are not a huge stealth guy, if I remember from past conversations.
Yeah, like games like Metal Gear Solid and things like that, and like the the Tom Clancy games, like Splinter Cell. Yeah. Not my cup of tea. I can do a little bit of stealth, but for the most part, I like to get into the action. That's more interesting to me. And so my first playthrough, I was not interested. And even technically somewhat through the second playthrough. I was having a hard time with it at first. Once I got used to how to run and gun as much as you possibly can in this game, because obviously in this game resources are limited. So, I had to figure out, okay, what guns can I use that I can run and gun and take people out in as little shots as possible, and use some of the other elements like the bricks and stuff like that. It's a balance of melee weapons and then your guns as well. So I kind of had to balance that out. Like, okay, what enemies can I sneak around and just bash their head in, and what enemies can I use the guns.
There's nothing like upgrading your bat or your whatever weapon it is. Your 2x4 and
one hit.
Oh gosh, that's one of the things I liked about the game is the ability to upgrade. You start off small and then you upgrade so you can carry more. Yep. You can upgrade to new guns, your weapons, shivs, all that stuff. You just gather stuff that is around, like your alcohol and all the other items and crafting. At first, the menu where you select your guns was very clunky at first, super clunky. I had no idea. I'm like, this is not intuitive at all. And then, I played for another 7-10 hours, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is so much easier because they give you the option to do it that way, and then as you craft more and more, I'm like, okay, I'm not getting away from the action. I'm not in a menu. I'm still the game is still going on while I'm going through figuring out what my next weapon is, whether I'm throwing grenades or whatever.
It gives you double the options, because normally in like Uncharted you can press triangle to switch between your guns and throw a grenade, the end. And so in this one, it was giving you extra layers where it took a little extra button press, but it's still fast enough to where you could react. You didn't, like you said, have to pause and, okay, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
No, you get used to it, and they really build it up really well, layer it really well.
The stealth, so the stealth at first kind of was like, I'm a little apprehensive towards this. I don't know if I like this. But once I got acquainted enough to where I could throw in my own play style and sort of adapt to it as much as you can, I got used to it, and I was okay.
Yeah. Did you use the listening very much?
Sometimes.
I used it all the time.
I know there was a good portion where I didn't, I noticed it. I was like, man, I'm not even touching this button. But they're
like pretty much playing it on grounded.
Yeah, you might as well just upped it up to grounded, man.
Well, and then but then there were a couple of times where, like, especially when you're facing, I guess, quote unquote, bigger bosses, that I used it, or bigger groups of enemies,
like in Pittsburgh.
Yep, like in Pittsburgh, that I used it. But honestly, like, I didn't use it as often as probably other people would. Just because, I could for the most part see people around me, and just come up and shiv them or whatever.
That was so satisfying, just shivving someone in the back, in the neck and the head.
Yep.
It was one of those
great feeling.
Well, I mean, they the way they did it, the way the camera moved in as you snuck up and shivved them in the head, it was it made it satisfying, because you're killing these clickers, you're killing these infected, and it made it look cool too.
But man, didn't that work the other way too when you got killed and it like zoomed on your throat getting ripped out?
Yeah,
I was just like, oh my gosh.
Every single time you're like, oh no.
The only other game I can think of that got me in that way that was just like so shocking is the first Tomb Raider, the reboot of Tomb Raider.
So many different deaths.
All the different ways you could die, and they were all so senseless and just terrible. And I hated
all of these
in The Last of Us. Yeah.
I think the worst ones I saw was when, like, I want to say it was the bloaters and, like, the ones that, like, have the actual protective armoring to them. where basically they grab you and literally rip your face open.
Oh, gosh. Yeah,
that was difficult.
Very graphic.
Yeah.
Very
Most times-
brutal game.
Most times I would there were a couple of points like when they were in the medical school where there's that one that has like the armored plates to it, and at that point I was like, nope, I'm just gonna run away. I'm not even gonna bother.
Just run. Hit him from far.
We'll have enough
We're done
ammo
here.
for this.
Yeah, and I think overall, I don't know. I would have to someone would have to name a variety of games that do this, but I feel like Last of Us is one of the best at mixing stealth and action. Like I thought it was really well balanced. It gave you lots of tools to do both, and even in the midst of that, the game is pretty much a big escort mission. Like you're escorting Ellie to Salt Lake City, which as you go through the story, and Joel adopts this girl Ellie into his life, and you're escorting her. And I don't know if you guys know this or have played like Ico or Ico, depending on how you pronounce it.
Yeah, I played that.
But Druckmann has said that not Druckmann, the gameplay designer of this game, that I don't remember his name and I didn't write it down, but he said that this game, the gameplay for this game is like half Ico and half Resident Evil 4. Like he said those are the two games that he took and he mashed them together for this game. And when I read that, I was like, oh, I can see it. And what I appreciate about that is that he did not take the escort aspect of Resident Evil 4 and put that into...
Yeah, I was going to say...
He took the Ico version of it, where she doesn't hurt you, she helps you. Or
right.
At least doesn't get
anybody
in the way.
involved helps you.
Yeah. And that's where the gameplay, I think, gets even extra interesting, is when Ellie is a part. And when at first she's just kind of on the side running around, and then she starts to help. And then she starts to, I remember her saving my butt lots of times when I was either in stealth and I got caught, or, I got attacked and she would jump on their back or whatever.
Yep.
That whole relationship between the two of them was really cool in the gameplay, not just in the story.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that. One of the big things that I want to talk about is Joel's emotional journey. The story beats that really shape who he is. The first one was his daughter dying, and then when he has to do that escort mission, he doesn't want to do it. He's like, I don't want to do this, and he gives Ellie the cold shoulder for
he wants guns.
Yeah, for the first 7 hours of the game, he gives her the cold shoulder, and then they're in Pittsburgh, and he's one of the bad guys is on him, and she shoots him, and he didn't even give her a thank you,
right.
And so a few minutes later, they're about to snipe some guys, and he's showing her how to use a gun. The rifle, and he's like, and just so we're clear, it was either him or me. It was his way of saying thank you. And at that point, from that point on, you can see the subtle changes of him, thinking of Ellie more than just his mission.
Yeah.
She's starting to become part of his life, and it's just that's just one of the story beats right there, where this escort mission just no longer feels like an escort mission. They're a team, they're a family, or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really important aspect of it, and it reminds me, well, one, it gives me hope for the fact that they're making a show out of this, because I think even if they don't make it just about Joel and Ellie, and they, touch on some other people, with Druckmann being involved and some of the other Last of Us people being involved, I think they're going to make this TV show really good, because they demonstrated in this game.
I really hope it's Joel and Ellie in this. I really do.
Yeah.
It would be cool to have a side character, I think it's Ish, through some of the notes you read when you're washed up ashore.
Once you escape Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So it would be cool to have that, but really the big draw is Joel and Ellie. And I think if they could do something during, in between where like those 20-year gap, there's a lot of story you can put in there. You don't need to do a sequel after Last of Us 2, maybe. I don't really want to see a prequel because, Ellie's a big part of it. Why don't you put it in that 20-year break, or maybe when Ellie's a little bit older and they kind of like I don't know, they'll have both of them, but they never meet. I don't know how they're going to do it, but there's a lot of story that can be in there. Yeah,
in my opinion, Joel and Ellie is what makes The Last of Us The Last of Us.
Yes.
I mean, yes, there's a lot of peripheral characters that you could do some story about, but honestly, that's what differentiates it from every other zombie movie or television show or game.
It's not like The Walking Dead or something, where it's
1,000 people.
Is 1,000 people involved.
Yeah.
That relationship and the fact that Ellie, you find out, is immune. She is immune.
I thought you were going to say she's a mutant.
Yes.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yes.
Turns out
that part.
Turns out her name is Jubilee, and no, I'm just kidding.
She can make sparkles with her fingers.
No, but yeah, she's
gave
immune.
Away the ending. Jeez.
Oh,
no,
we're not there yet.
Sorry.
But yeah, she's immune. That's the biggest part. That's the whole reason for why he's even bringing her. Well, the reason why Marlene wants her to be brought, to the Fireflies is because this girl is immune, and she could potentially lead to a cure. And so you could really go into that, and I don't know how much part 2 will touch on that. But I mean, you could expound more on that in the TV show. Like, okay,
sure.
Is Ellie truly the only one who is immune? Are there more? And of course we'll go into that in the ending. But
sure will.
Oh yeah. But you bring up the Fireflies, which is a very important aspect of the story, an important aspect of the gameplay, because you're constantly, like, throughout the game, you're hitting different, like, groups of enemies, groups of characters that you're interacting with, and it brings a bit, I think, a cool layer that I think and I hope and I feel like they've talked a little bit about in part 2 that there's going to be more of this. And I think you see it in the game where you get into an area where there's humans and there's infected, and you can do things to kind of trigger them to fight each other, kind of like Days Gone, I think, did, where you could, kind of set up traps and stuff based off of what you run into. So I really like in the game how you don't know, you really get to the point where it's you and Ellie, or I guess Joel and Ellie. You feel like it's you because you're playing as Joel.
Right.
But you realize it's just us against the world. Like, trying to figure this out and get through here. And then one second you're with the infected, the next second you're with humans, the next second you're with fireflies. And it's like, who are the good guys in this? And who are the bad guys? And it creates for some very just really dynamic storytelling. And it's really cool.
Yeah. Speaking of running into humans, the couple of humans that you run into that are kind of your friends are, Sam and Henry.
Yeah.
Which that whole side storyline of them escaping the city together and them just ending up and fighting zombies in that, like, neighborhood, and Joel is just sniping and sniping and sniping. And then it turns out that, Sam got bit. Bit, and then the next morning, like, he's just standing in his room, and he turns around and just goes after Ellie.
Goes ballistic.
Yeah, and then Joel's over there about to shoot him, and then Henry's like, no, and then he shoots his son or his brother. I always think it's his son, but it's actually his brother, because of the age difference.
The age difference.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So he shoots his brother, and then 2 seconds later, he just turns a gun on himself. And it's just one of the many moments where I'm just like, heavy. I put my hand over my mouth like, really? This is what just happened? Like, they're telling this real story. And it is graphic. It's brutal. But then, that's like the end of summer. And immediately it goes to fall. Like, immediately. Yep. And you're like, whoa. All right, seasons change. Things are different. And
it's just kind of crazy to think about the psychology of that. Like, Sam was literally the only family that Henry had left, and that 1 ounce even though Sam didn't really know anything other than, growing up in this virus going on and all that kind of stuff and all these zombies and stuff, for Henry, that is the last shred of having that old school humanity left, is having family in his life. And this whole thing just immediately just takes him. And that's it.
Yeah. And it
At
just
that point-
shows... Oh, go ahead.
At that point, like, what is there to live for?
And that just shows how strong of a character and how strong of a will Joel has. Because it happened to him.
Yep.
It immediately happened to him in the beginning, and he's still alive and kicking. Yeah, he's a grumpy guy, and he's very cynical, but he's strong, and he wants to survive. It just shows how strong of a character he is.
Oh, what is that?
I feel like...
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like in a lot of times in different mediums and of entertainment and stories, I always try to understand, okay, where is this story? What is the viewpoint or the perspective from which the authors or designers or whatever are coming from? And most of the time it falls into two camps. It's either trying to give you a message or trying to inspire you or show you a path that you should go, or it's showing you an allegory or reality of life that you've either faced, or you're facing, or you're going to face. And I feel like this game rides that line right down the middle most of the game.
Yeah.
To the point where you really are like entering into humanity in such a broken state, and it's something we don't connect with because we have so many good things in life. We have so many privileges and so many things at our fingertips. We don't understand this world that we're experiencing in this game. And maybe in the past couple months, some people have experienced it, but to enter into it and to really understand, man, humans can be so messed up and so broken and so hurt.
And Joel...
Life can find a way.
Yeah. Joel, at one point in the game, can't remember what part it was, but he says the world isn't worth saving. He's like, who cares? As long as I live, I don't care. The world's gonna die. The world's going into the crapper. It already has. The world's not worth saving. So it's like you said. It's very real and very on the line.
And then it veers you back and forth, like teeters you on the edge. Some of the moments that we can talk about that were so impactful, both in a good and bad way. Like of course, you talked about the fall after David. No, not David. We're not there yet. When Henry and Sam, they both die, and then you go into fall. But even then, after that, when they're trying to find the Fireflies, they get to the university. All that the scuffling happens, and you think that possibly Joel is dead because he falls off in the scuffle, falls off a balcony, and then it goes to black.
Winter.
Did you guys think? Yeah, and then it says winter.
It's like,
did you guys think
goodness.
that Joel was dead?
I don't remember the way I felt, but the way it was shot, like it didn't seem like he was dead. It just didn't seem like it, because I don't think they would show that right away, because normal movie, normal TV, normal video game storytelling is if a main character dies off screen, he's not dead. So that's always in my mind when I see a lead character almost die or whatever.
Yeah, there was a part of me that thought he could have, especially because then in winter it transitions to you playing as Ellie, which is such a I can't think of how many games do this, but when you get like midstream, as it were, when you get mid game and all of a sudden you're not even led into it, but all of a sudden you're playing as a different character.
Yeah.
For these kind of reasons, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah.
I had to laugh, and I know that was a serious scene, but
don't tell me you're about to laugh at the rabbit.
That's exactly what I laughed at.
Oh, dude! Like, that was another point where I just put my hand over my mouth, like, "Oh my gosh, really?"
Well, there's a reason for that, and it's because there's a meme that's been made out of it, where there's this Twitch streamer that she's just kind of sitting there, and she's enjoying the little bunny flopping through the snow.
Yeah, who didn't enjoy it? It was a perfectly animated
and all
bunny.
of a sudden, arrow through the head, and she goes.
Yeah.
That was quite a moment.
And I was like, I didn't realize it was from this game.
I do want to backtrack into like the end of fall before we get into winter time in this game. And it was when Ellie had run off because Joel was like, I don't want to take care of this girl anymore. I want my brother Tommy to
when he
take
meets
care
up
of
with his
it.
brother at the dam.
Yeah, and he's like, he's still conflicted at this point, but he's like, I don't want to have to deal with this. Give me a horse and I'll be on my way. You know, you can be the hero of the world because you're given the Ellie, who's the cure of mankind. You know, you can be the person who takes all the glory. And so she runs off, and they go after her. They come across that house that she's in, and she says something that really resonates with Joel. She says, everybody has either died or left me, and everybody except you. And she says this in like a heated argument. And at that point, you know, you can see Joel just like, oh my gosh, you know, like this girl is a part of my life, and I'm a part of hers.
She's breaking through.
Yeah, she broke through right then. You know, and at that point, you know, just a little bit farther into there, maybe about 10 minutes later, he pulls a little rope-a-dope and says, all right, Tommy, get out of here. I'm taking Ellie. And that was just like, it's another one of the story beats where it's like, okay, now you can see the transition. Joel is, you know, feels more or less responsible for her in a paternal kind of way, because he had a daughter and she died, and now all of a sudden he's kind of has a new daughter in a sense, kind of like a fresh start, and you can see from that point on, you can see it starting to change a little bit more drastically, not subtly like before. At that point, he's taking care of her.
Yep. And of course, since you guys have watched lots of movies and read lots of books and experienced lots of stories, you knew at that point that something was going to go wrong, because you saw the light bulb coming on.
Yep.
And they were starting to mesh, and that's when they always pull the rug out onto you.
Exactly.
And that rug in this sense was a rebar and David. So let's get into David. Winter David and the Cannibals, which was like, came out of left field for me. Like, I could have gone either way with Joel being dead or alive. I was like, I could see it going either way. And then once you control Ellie, it's like, okay, this is interesting. But then once you meet David, I was a little naive at the beginning. Like, honestly, the first time I played it, I was like, all right, we're going to get some help, and we're going to help, you know, Joel once they show it. And then all of a sudden,
I was a bit. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, but if you look at the perspective of Joel and David, all right, and Joel is killing all these enemies, all these guys, and then David's like, hey, you killed all my guys, I'm gonna kill you too. And it's, you know, in both of those characters, both of those situations, they're both wrong, you know. And it's just like, okay, Joel has Ellie, who's gonna be the cure of mankind. David's just trying to survive. That's the only difference between them two. Also, David and his whole crew being cannibals, pretty gross.
And him wanting to like make Ellie his queen, quote unquote, or whatever his.
He's a pedophile.
Friend.
Let's just go with that.
Like, okay.
And then she jumping ahead a little bit, but then she pulls out the lethal bite on him, and he's screwed.
Yeah.
When I first got into Winter, and she meets up with David, I mean, the red flags were going off. Like, okay, he's got some sort of nefarious, you know, inner stuff going on, but I didn't know how. Like, it was like he seems kind of nice, it seems like he's kind of trying to get his own way here, but in such a way where he's not like the straight up evil guy at first.
Yeah. In hindsight, though, he was definitely I got puppies in my van coming.
Yeah,
Yep,
vibes.
had that vibe for sure.
I mean,
especially
Nolan
when he
North nailed
captures
his
her.
Voice. Oh, yeah.
Especially when he captures her, that's when his the curtain starts to open and you see the real David. But obviously, when I found out, she kills that deer, and she meets David and his buddy, and she mentioned something about the penicillin and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, Joel's alive.
Yeah, definitely. When she said she needed medicine, I was like, this isn't for you.
Yeah. So, I kept going with it, and I enjoy the complete just scene backdrop changes. It's incredible how seasons completely change a game.
Oh, I miss that about the U.S.
Yeah.
Living in Brazil, it's the grass just
All
disappears, or it's green, or it's not. Like, there's no change.
Yeah.
There's no change in the seasons, and oh man, it's so stark in this game. It's beautiful.
And then obviously David reveals his true colors, especially after she bites him. And then of course at that point, Ellie's a crafty girl. She's quick on her feet.
She is, but
sure.
I have to say that I died a lot during this segment because I was trying to play her like Joel. I feel like just subconsciously, and so running through the town, when you're running through the town and it's all smoky and everybody's running around, it's crazy. And as Ellie, I died a lot there. I died a number of times as her.
Oh yeah, it made me angry because I'm like, where's the health? Where is the health?
I need some health. Yeah.
So while Ellie is being captured, Joel's waking up, and so and
brutalness.
He goes, speaking of brutal, he goes on like
full Rambo,
serious
Papa Bear
rampage. He captures two guys, figures out where their camp is, and then he breaks the dude's neck that's like sitting in the chair, and then just goes over and says, "I don't care what you know, I'm gonna kill you anyways." And just takes like a machete or a bat to his face, and you can see like he's like, okay, I'm no longer responsible for Ellie. I need to protect her. You know, this is. I feel like this is my life and blood. I need to protect her, not just for the cure of humanity, because I now care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and then leading up to, walking through the snow as him, switching back from Ellie to him, and then it's switching back again to do what I think is really the only boss fight in the game, like a quote-unquote
It was like a bloater back in the high school that was kind of like a mini boss.
Yeah.
But
we'll come back to that.
As far as like a human enemy,
right.
Yeah, it was
not
David.
only that, but you had like a set piece where you couldn't go over some glass. You had to like go through the aisles of the restaurant in a certain way. It felt, it was really cool, and I really enjoyed the boss encounter, but it's the only time that I felt like I was this is a pre-designed area for a boss fight. Like that's how it felt like for me. And so it kind of broke some of the walls, as it were it's like, okay, I'm playing a video game. But at the same time, I did enjoy it. And man, afterwards, when you finish that boss fight, you get to see Ellie's transition from,
she goes bonkers.
I'm a happy little teenage girl to I'm my own woman. And
I'm gonna kill you, and I'm gonna keep killing you until you die from it. I'm gonna take this machete, and I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna hit you in the head 10 to 15 times before Joel has to intercede. Like, hey, you got him.
I think.
Well, especially like after he gets on top of her and is about to do some probably horrible things.
Sure.
I've never been in that situation, but lots of people have been in that situation where you are being attacked, you are helpless, there's nothing you can do, and they're about to do some terrible things to you that really it really messes you up. And so I'm sure she's like up in the stratosphere in terms of, I need to eliminate this threat. You're about to do something to me that I no way want you to do to me? And finally, when she gains control of the situation, all that adrenaline and all that anger just floodgates open. So,
yeah, and then right after that,
boom,
spring.
Yeah, not summer.
And you
Spring,
go, and you go. So you're changing these seasons, and you get all this brutal and messed up and horrifying and bloody. And then you get to pretty much the beginning of spring, and there's like really no enemies. It's kind of like it's I think they're in Colorado now. They're in Colorado, and Joel lifts Ellie up, and she's like, "Holy crap, you got to see this!" and just like drops the ladder, and then you climb up the ladder, and you see one of the most beautiful scenes in gaming today. Only because of how brutal this game has been. And then you see like just wildlife. You see giraffes just walking. And
you don't have to see them, you pet them.
And you pet them. So I want to say something about petting the giraffe. A lot of games where you can pet animals get an uptick for me. Like earlier in the game, when you get to your brother Tommy's compound,
you pet the dog.
And you can pet the dog, and I'm like, oh sweet, like if you can pet a dog in a game, it's good, and then
you guys followed the Twitter handle? Can you pet the dog? Have you seen
No.
Yeah, there's a Twitter handle. I think it's Can You Pet the Dog? And this person, whoever runs this, will go throughout all kinds of video games, and they will show if you can pet the dog in the game or not.
That's funny.
And I mean, there's like, they'll show Resident Evil where you fight a dog, and it's like, all it says, it shows a video of you fighting the dog, and it says you cannot pet the dog in Resident Evil 3. And it's like them getting attacked by the dog. And it doesn't, I see him do it with Zelda, I see him do it with all kinds of games. It's hilarious.
Yeah, but you pet that giraffe, and it was just like a moment where you're taken away from the brutal part of the world.
Yeah.
And just like, I don't know, it was a very uplifting, a very, feeling shift.
Right.
From
well,
the rest
we needed
of the game. Like
we just got emotionally drained in the last scene.
Yeah.
Right. To see the worst of mankind, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, there's hope."
Yep.
And obviously, so after that brings me to my one other gripe.
Okay, here we go
about this game, and it is a minor.
Talk about my gripe too. I'll say it after this one.
Okay. So obviously he brings Ellie to the hospital after Ellie has fallen in the water after they're trying to go through the tunnels to get to the hospital, and Ellie ends up getting in the water, and of course she can't swim, and he's trying to help her breathe again and all that, and then the Fireflies find Joel and Ellie and knock him out.
Yeah.
Then when he comes to, he's there with Marlene.
And what is she doing there? I don't know if that's your gripe, but that was one of my gripes. Is just Marlene was just back there in the beginning of the game telling me to take Ellie all the way here.
Why
and
didn't
then all
you
of a sudden
do it?
I get awakened. The first person that I see is Marlene. Come on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's been several seasons, so she had her way getting there just like they did.
So why does she need Joel?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, she had been injured, remember?
Yeah, she had been injured, and she was low on resources, and she knew that Joel was a man who could get something done.
Yeah.
Now, before we jump too much further into the hospital, I did want to say, did you guys, what did you guys think of what literally was the final go-round with the infected in the game under the bridge? Where
I started off trying to kill them. At one point, I was like, no. I'm done.
And then what'd you do? Just run?
Yeah, I just ran because like they just kept swarming me.
Yeah.
And like I could not survive. So it's like, okay, fighting them is not an option here. And this was on easy mode.
Yeah.
So
the first time I played, I accidentally skipped all of it.
Mm.
Like I went onto the bridge, and you know how you have a first few infected?
Yeah.
You know that you go through some tunnels and some things, and you come out to an area that's just where you're supposed to fight them. They weren't there, and I just walk through and go to the other side.
What?
It glitched out on me to where the enemies did not pop up. And the only reason I knew that is because the second time I played, I ran into all that crap, and I was just like, what is going on?
This.
What did I do? Did I make a mistake? Did I make a bad choice at the beginning of the game? And they're like, we're going to punish you. And then I discovered I hit a glitch the first time around, and then the second time they made me pay for it because I died a lot, and it was crazy.
Yeah, thankfully a lot of those guys were like clickers and different offshoots of clickers and stuff to where they couldn't see you, they could hear you, so you could sneak by and just get through. Because eventually, like after 2 or 3 times of just getting swarmed, and I'm like, nope. I'm like, nope, forget this. I'm out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I eventually got through, and it was fine. That was, learning how to pick your battles is a big part of this game.
It's very important.
For sure.
I'm sure there are plenty of people who are better people at this game than I am, that could probably, get through all that, but I just didn't have the patience for that. So, I skipped on through, and then you get to the hospital. Was that all we wanted to say before we? Okay.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because I thought that was funny.
All right.
Okay, so you're in the hospital. You find out that Ellie's getting prepped for surgery, and Joel's like, "What surgery? Why?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, the only way we can get this cure, and there's no guarantee that we even get the cure, is by basically getting it through the brain, because it is an infection of the brain. So we have to get it from the brain, and so she will die."
Yeah.
And obviously, this presents a huge conflict to the changed Joel, but that's not my gripe. My gripe is what is perceived as the final showdown.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not just my gripe with The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
It is my gripe with a lot of current games. I know it's all about the story, and I get that perspective, that you want to be in the story and stuff. But I remember back in the days when they had, like, you were prepping for the final boss, and it was a big showdown, and, there were multiple parts to it, to fighting the boss, and all that kind of stuff. And I understand that, some of that may be fantasy games where, it's different, but
right.
I just felt like I didn't get that. I just felt like, you've got to sneak through a hospital, defeat a bunch of enemies, grab Ellie, and get out. And you don't even have to fight Marlene. It basically just goes to a cutscene. And to me, that didn't feel like a build-up so much to me. It made sense for the story. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I like where it went that way, and obviously we'll talk about the ending there. But
this leads directly into it. So
I just feel like there could have been a bigger like climax of the game, like some sort of a final boss. Like I would have been okay, and of course you would have had to write it differently if David, like you mentioned, that was the only time where you felt like there was a boss.
Yeah.
And I feel like that could have been more closer to the end. Just my opinion, and it's a minor gripe. Overall, I mean, I love this game. I thought it was great. Yeah, I just kind of wish that had been different.
Yeah, I am on the opposite spectrum. This game, there was no indication that there was like one person behind all of what's going on. Like in Resident Evil, you got Albert Wesker and the Umbrella Corporation. Like this is just an infection that just happened, and the biggest battle that you have is with yourself, and Joel, and like internally. That's the battle that's going on pretty much through the entire thing, and he is pushing himself, pushing his will as hard as he can so that he can save Ellie, because I don't know if you had gone through the and listened to the recorders throughout the
Some of them,
game. There is a recorder at the end, and it says something like they've gone through all of these other surgeries with other infected individuals, and none of them worked. One, because they were all infected, they didn't have enough antibodies in their body, or they weren't fighting it off. And Ellie's the only one that has had that ability to become immune to it in a sense.
To this point in history, she is literally the only one. There are no
only
other
one
people
that they know
who
of.
have. Yeah.
And so he's like, I don't care if she's the last chance. She's, like, I have a daughter now, pretty much. I gotta fight for her life. He's a very selfish individual, because instead of allowing her to die and save the world, instead he's like, I can't lose another daughter. Basically, that's what he's thinking, and that is the battle. And if there was an end boss, I think it kind of would have downplayed that a little bit. Yeah. That's just my thought.
Well, that's
and
the thing is,
I totally get your gripe. I totally get it, because usually games have that, but this one was. I felt like it was more of a natural progression and not a video game mechanic or a video game gameplay where it's like there's a boss.
Well, you bring up that point of Joel being selfish. In a certain perspective, at the end, Mark, you didn't fight a boss because you were the boss. You were one of the villains. You're not just hero versus the Fireflies. You realize at the end of the game that there are no heroes, and that it's just people trying to survive, and in their way, in their selfish way. And I didn't get that at first. Like at the end, when the first time I played it, all of a sudden I'm killing, in the cutscene, Joel's killing fireflies, and I'm like, wait, what? Like, she's gonna save the world, and now all of a sudden I'm forced to become a villain, because here I am killing a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. Sure, they didn't give Ellie we don't really know at that point if they've given Ellie the choice, if they've talked her through, here's what's happening, are you willing to make this sacrifice? But we're assuming that they haven't, that they've taken away her choice. And so, to me, that's how I kind of justified the fact that I was fighting through this building to save Ellie, who is kind of a victim, even though she gives people hope with a cure. But at the same time, like, you realize that Joel has become, in a sense, a villain. And I think that is like, again, it's showing humanity, and it's demonstrating, it's not giving you a message like everybody's a villain, everybody's a hero, nobody's a hero, or whatever. It's just showing you when people are on their own and they don't have hope, or they only have one love, one passion, what will they do to not lose that? Like, how far will they go?
Yeah, and he went as far as to burst into the operating room, and you had a choice. The game doesn't give you the choice. It'll sit there. How long did you guys sit there before you shot the doctor?
Oh, I popped him off immediately.
Yeah,
really?
I took him out.
Really?
Once he did it, once he initiated it, I was all in. I was like, okay, I'm saving Ellie.
Did you kill the nurses too?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you don't have to.
I found that out in the second
you don't.
playthrough.
But I didn't want to take any chance of anybody trying to stop me.
Okay, so I sat there. The first time I played, I sat there and I was like, am I in a cutscene? Like, what? It's not making me do anything. And I sat there for probably 45 seconds. I was like, maybe it wasn't that long, but it felt like it was long.
20 minutes later, I don't know what to do.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. But shoot the first one. And then both of the other nurses are up against the wall, and then I go over to Elliot, and the cutscene starts. And
now, do you guys know if you don't do anything, do they eventually like attack you, or?
I don't know.
Because
I just didn't want to take that risk.
Well, no, I didn't either. But at the beginning of the game, in the opening, when you're carrying your daughter, I played this last time. I started the game like the first hour, and I decided to just stand there while everybody's running, and I'm holding my daughter. I'm like, what's going to happen? And all of a sudden, within a minute, an infected comes and like attacks us and kills us.
Oh,
and then it restarts back to me holding, and it restarts the whole setup. And I'm like,
Chuckman's you have no choice. You need to move.
I can die in this tutorial. Okay. So I'm curious to know what would happen. Yeah, I immediately acted. I was like,
Oh,
nope,
man.
I'm getting Ellie. I'm all in. Let's do this. Let's save my adopted daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I guess this isn't the game to try to have this gripe, because I mean it's happened in other games too, where it's like the ending is just so
right,
not what I was looking for in a video game.
Yeah.
And so
and
I get
totally
what you're
understand it, Mark.
saying.
yeah. It's more of a thought-provoking ending than it is a big, huge battle ending.
Yeah.
So I guess after you get Ellie and you're driving, and at this point you're driving, you're like, you haven't killed Marlene yet, and you're just like, okay, so apparently he had given Ellie back. But then you hear Ellie just wake up in the back because she's still in her gown, and he says, you know, they've tried so many different people, nothing has worked, and they stopped looking for a cure. And she's like, all right, you know, like, okay. Since it's just like at that point, you know, like he's protecting her.
Yeah.
And so there's like right afterwards they get out of the car. I guess they run out of gas. Car breaks down. They're in Wyoming. They're back at Tommy's, you know, big huge neighborhood compound, whatever. And they're walking, and Joel says something that is kind of like this overarching storyline, emotional storyline that Joel's had. And he's like, my daughter and I used to take walks like this. I think you would have got along. And at that point, it's like he thinks he's on a hike with his daughter now. You know, it's his daughter. He's protecting her. He wants her to be alive because he cannot lose another daughter.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why he saved her. He's like, can't do it. And then she's like, swear to me, everything you told me in the car was true. And the whole point of, like, you know, they stopped looking for a cure. And he's like, I swear. And then she just responds with, okay. Like, and then it ends. The game ends.
And then it blacks out.
It just ends.
It goes to the beautiful music of this game.
What do you think? What do you think was going through Ellie's mind when she was like, okay? Did you think that she was just agreed with it and just she knew he was lying, and then was just like, you know what, I'm alive, you know, I don't even want to get into it? Or do you think she truly believed him?
I think in the back of her mind, she had some idea or a suspicion that wasn't the truth. But I think that at this point they had been through so much. At this point, they were starting to build a life again. And there's like, well, you know, the world may not be fixed, but at least we can make another world. And so it's like, okay, this may or may not be true, but I'm going to live life anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to trust Joel.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. That's the way I thought.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think too, because you could see the seed of doubt in her face when she said okay. Like, you knew it wasn't like, okay, good. No, it was, okay. It's more like, you know what? I've also changed during this trip, and you're not like a father to me, but you are. I love you, and I believe you because of who you are to me. Yeah. And she just chose, I think she chose to believe him.
I think so too.
And that was it.
100%. Yeah.
And I have to say that when it blacked out, I felt a little sick.
It was just like
gut-wrenching. I was like, that's it? No.
It wasn't just a happy ending.
No.
It wasn't. We're going to end it right here, you know, and I'm so excited for Last of Us 2.
Yeah, man.
And where we're going to be, because Ellie was 14 in Last of Us 1, and this Last of Us 2 is set 5 years later. So she's 19. Something's happened between then.
Oh, for sure.
Whether there's, I don't know. Do we want to get into predictions? Do we have anything else to say about Last of Us 1? Do we want to give our scores and overall review?
I will respectfully bow out of predictions because I know
that's
stuff.
okay.
Oh, you know stuff. Okay, I know zero. You know how I know. You know how I am about spoilers.
Yep. So I'm not going to comment.
I don't want to jump into that quite yet because I
Okay.
do want to comment. This is my only gripe in the game, that once I found out about part 2, it took my gripe away, but I did not initially like the ending. I did not like how it ended on a lie. I did not like how it ended. I didn't like it. I wanted him to just say, "Hey, I'm sorry. I loved you too much to let you die." And
That's not the way Joel is.
instead, no, and I understand that, but at the same time, like kind of like Mark said, he wanted a boss fight at the end. I wanted not a happy ending, but I wanted an ending where I wanted a peaceful ending, like
Sure.
and I should have known, given the fact that Joel, in a sense, went, while he was saving a life, he went a little villain at the end, and so I shouldn't expected it, but it was my main gripe because the thing I did not appreciate is that nobody gave Ellie the choice. Like the whole game, she was showing her glimmers of heroism. She was showing that by the end of the game, she's the only hero left. Everybody else has gotten a lot of blood on their hands. Whether it's the Fireflies, whether it's Joel. She's the only hero left, and nobody gives her the choice. And I felt like she was robbed. And I felt that without part 2, I felt it was still an incomplete game, even though it was a really compelling story.
Valid.
Yeah, and that was their intent.
Yeah.
That was their intent, to leave
For
it like
sure.
that.
Yep, for sure. You contrast it with, playing Spider-Man on PS4. Spoilers for Spider-Man on PS4. Go forward a minute or two. I won't talk that long, so go forward a minute if you don't want to hear spoilers. Go. Skip. Peter Parker and May talk about it. And May is given the choice to die to save the rest of New York. And Peter Parker doesn't want to. He wants to save Aunt May. And instead, they talk it out, and they make a decision, and she dies, and the rest of New York is saved. That is a hero's ending. And so when you contrast that with The Last of Us, it's like, ugh, man. But we have part 2 coming. So I don't know. I truly believe that there's going to be a connection to the decision that Joel made in part 1. Like, there's no way they're just going to skip it and it's going to be this whole different. I just can't see how they can't. You can't come back from a decision like that Joel made.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But that gripe is not a gripe anymore, because I appreciate the story that they're trying to say and the humanity they're trying to demonstrate. Because to me, in the end, I know that no human being, no fallen or broken human being can make that decision to give up the one they love, except for
that would be tough. Like, I don't know how I'll react.
Yeah, exactly. And none of us on our own would be able to do that. And that gives credence to then the fact, to get spiritual for a second, the fact that the only one who could do that did it in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And, and God giving his son. He's the only one that could do it, and he did it. And, I know this is just a video game, and I know it's just a story about people and, quote unquote zombies and everything else. But like, to me, that just like, there's a teaching moment in that, to understand that on your own, yeah, you can't do it. You can't do it by yourself. You need help. We all need it.
We all need support.
We don't have the strength. We need that support. And Joel didn't have it. And so I totally get it. And I get his decision, and I got to experience it. And it was really impactful and really good. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And I played all this game 4 times while being a dad of a daughter,
Yeah.
And I played it, and it's so gut wrenching. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like I would do the exact same thing. I feel like it would be selfish and just be like, I don't care. I'm going to lose Claire. And I'm going to lose Claire if I do this. I'm gonna be in a world without her.
Right.
Would my world be empty? For sure. If she was the only one I had left, my world would be empty.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So review time. Score.
Yeah. Let's give a review score. Which is really hard to do, playing it twice and like having 7 years to like sit on it. 7 years.
I would give this is a 10 out of 10 game. It is a game that I will replay for the years to come. Especially with Last of Us 2 coming out. It is one of those stories that I love to relive. 10 out of 10 palettes. That's my my only gripe in the game is how many different sections you needed a pallet in water.
Yeah.
Hey, girl doesn't know how to swim.
What are you gonna do?
Thank God for pallets.
We got a pallet.
Can we confirm? Do pallets really float that well? Because
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Know
Pallets are usually pretty dense. I've like moved pallets around in some of the jobs I've had in the past, and I'm not convinced that they would float like that.
I don't know, but yeah, 10 out of 10.
All right, 10 out of 10. Mark,
let's
get your fresh rating. This is a fresh. I mean, we know you're not going to give it 10 out of 10, so it's okay. But just don't give it like 4 or 5. Please don't. Patrick might cry.
No.
Oh no, I'm not gonna do anything.
kidding.
You know, it's his opinion.
It is.
Everyone's got their own opinions, man.
Yeah, man.
I would say 9. 9 out of 10.
Okay.
That's awesome to hear when it did not I don't know, speak to you years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I have my minor gripes about it. After the whole Joel and Sarah thing, the death of Sarah and all that kind of stuff, I was certainly moved by that. But once you got in the actual gameplay, it felt kind of slow for the first little bit.
Sure.
But then I started to get more and more acquainted with it, and it picked up a lot more. And minor gripe aside, is this, like I said, there are games that have more my cup of tea that I would give a 10 out of 10. But given what this game is, and not everything is 100% my cup of tea, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
9 out of 10.
Nice. I would say for myself, I'm going to give it 2 ratings.
6 out of 6 Infinity Stones.
Yeah, no. I'm going to give it a standalone game rating, which is a standalone game, because there are a lot of people who didn't want part 2. They wanted this to be it. That is all.
Sure, yeah.
And with that in mind, I would give this game probably an 8 out of 10, just because I found the story to be incomplete and unsettling. While real, very, like, as you know, the pun is intended, it's very grounded, like, in terms of how it displays humanity, human nature. Like, this is a story of people who need love, are in the broken image of God, but don't have God. And it's seen throughout, and it's quite obvious.
There's a point when Sam and Ellie, they even talk about it. She's like, do you think there are people in there? Do you think they're gone to heaven? And she's like, no. She says, I go back and forth. And then and then Sam says, you don't believe it? She's like, I guess I don't. That God's not present in that point.
Yeah. So in that sense, as a standalone, I give it a 8 out of 10. But knowing now that it actually is part 1, and I mean, who knows, like, if things, I doubt, this is kind of edging into predictions, but, I have a feeling, just knowing the precedence that's been set up in part 1, that part 2 is not going to end all rainbows and unicorns. But at the same time, the fact that they've got to do something with this. It's not just they're gonna continue it on. It's not gonna end with a lie. It's gonna be, they're gonna deal with it. Ellie and Joel are gonna fight about this or talk about it. That's I guess a prediction. I guess bleeding into predictions, they're gonna deal with this. But with that in mind, this being a part 1, 10 out of 10. It's a superb game. The gameplay is balanced. The story is intriguing. and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
There you go. Nice.
All right. So, part 2 predictions.
So, having played this game multiple times and seeing the progression and the storytelling, Joel's going to die in part 2.
Yeah.
I think Joel's going to die early on, like Sarah did early in the game. I think that's going to be the way it's going to be. And I think Ellie's going to be the main protagonist. And I don't know if there's probably, she's going to meet people along the way. I don't know if there's going to be a section where you play as Joel, maybe during those 5 years that have passed. But I think he's going to die. And Joel's going to be there with her, like in spirit. Like she's going to talk to him throughout the game in her mind. That's my prediction, because I do not think that Joel's going to be in the game for the entirety.
Yeah.
I think they think he's going to die early. It's going to be very impactful, and they're going to be like spring or summer or winter. It's going to be something that's going to be very impactful.
Yeah, I remember when they first...
I'm glad Mark's not looking over here, because otherwise
He's like, no eye contact. No.
Yeah.
I think from the very get-go, when they show that first trailer, the one that Chris McCracken and Gabe on Married to the Games, when they react to it, that first moment when you see her playing the guitar and she looks up and I can't remember if she's talking to Joel or if she's like making a statement they're going to pay and all that stuff for what they did, or like she's alluding to taking revenge. Just in those, just knowing what's happened in this first one, I agree with you 100%. I've actually gone as far to think that either Joel or Ellie or both, I don't know if can't see how they could kill Ellie off, but I felt like they're going to do something to shock. Like either she's going to find out the choice that was taken away from her in the first one, and she in the second one is going to sacrifice herself willingly, because again, no one gave her the choice to sacrifice herself for the sake of mankind. So I feel like in this part 2, they're going to give her that option. And whether she takes it or not, I don't know. I feel like she's the hero of the story, and that she's going to take the high road, even if she's, cursing and violent about it. I think she's going to, the thing that they tried to do in the first one, the Fireflies tried to do, they're going to resolve it, and they're going to try to do it in the next one. And so, one or both of the main characters, I feel like they're going to die. And, I don't know if, I don't know. I just, that's the main thing that I'm just like, they're going to bring heroes out of this, because they had no heroes in the last one.
I think in this game, the way they're going to tell the story is there's going to be flashbacks. I think that's the way they're going to do it, because the only flashback that we got in this game was in Left Behind.
Right. And I think DLC. You're the only one that played it. Mark, you didn't play Left Behind.
I have not played it yet. I think I might play it.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just a couple hour DLC. Just gives a little bit of backstory of Ellie, how she got bit and things like that. Nothing crazy. Like if I had to rate that it would probably be a 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. It comes nowhere near the way they tell the story in the main game. But gotcha. I think the way they're going to do that in part 2 is they're going to do some time jumps, some flashbacks. That will bring Joel into the story more, because like Mark, you said, the whole draw to this game is Joel and Ellie. And without one or the other, it's not gonna feel the same. I'm not gonna put anything past Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog has done great with their storytelling in pretty much all the story-driven games that they've done. If they're gonna make a game, they're gonna make it right, and it's gonna work. So however they do it, I'm probably gonna enjoy it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that also I need to make one more prediction. No, 2 more. More joke books. There's got to be more jokes and more joke books.
More comic books,
I
too.
love that
That's
about
funny.
the game.
Yeah.
All the jokes. And that's something that was different for me on both playthroughs. I missed most of the optional conversations in the first playthrough of this game.
Me too. Yep.
Second time,
I didn't know they were there.
I followed a guide, and I got every joke. I got every collectible, and I really loved it. I enjoyed it. The jokes were
Nice.
hilarious. All a bunch of dad jokes. Yeah. So there's got to be more dad jokes in this one. So that's a prediction. And then the last prediction I have is aliens. There are going to be aliens, and
Like people from other countries.
you're going to find out that cordyceps are actually from Neptune.
All right. I really hope that does not happen.
Joke's on you.
Yeah.
I read the
It's
spoilers,
actually,
and it is
Then all of a sudden,
aliens.
Ellie wakes up from a nightmare, and it's just a dream. I can see that happening.
It's like Mario 2.
You're like, no. this
Spoilers
is
for
really
Mario
what
2.
it is.
It's all a dream. That's what it is.
Funny.
Oh, man.
If that were the case, I would immediately, like, say I were to buy it physically, I would immediately take the disc out and break the disc.
No, don't do it. Someone will want to play it.
No one else will want to play it if that's the case.
No one will ever play this. All right. Well, that is all for this chat about fireflies and dragonflies and elephant flies and the Last of
Giraffe
Us.
flies.
Rat flies. Oh, that would be creepy. Joiners, listeners, if you'd like to connect with us beyond listening, remember to check us out on Twitter at the GMG Podcast or our Discord, our Twitter profile and show notes for this episode and past episodes and future episodes that has links that you can click on. Clicky, clicky. It's pretty fun.
Clicky, clicky.
Yeah. But if you are old school and want to do email, you can email us at the goodmorningguys@gmail.com. You can also practice your radio voice and call us at what number, Patrick?
929 GMG guys.
That's right. Leave a message, ask a question, and let your voice be
No, that's
heard.
not right. It's 929 GMG guys.
Wait, what did he say?
You said the same thing.
I said 929 GMG guys.
Yeah, with the Z,
Okay.
right? Guys.
No. 929 GMG GUYS.
That is correct.
Yes.
All righty then. Mark and Pat, along with you, our beloved friends, family, and joiners, go get your good morning this week, and may God bless and guide your lives as you live, as you work, as you avoid the infection, and as you game. Ciao.
1, 2, 3, 4.